Hello Linux fans, Rob here. Welcome to Linux Quest. I've got a look at MX-16 Linux today from a review standpoint. I'm going to do this one a little different. This has been a while coming because of the holidays and everything. So MX-16 Linux has been out for a while now, a couple of weeks now. And there are some excellent reviews that I just want to point out. And Dolphin Oracle over at Run with the Dolphin on YouTube, you'll find lots of information about MX-16 there. Dolphin Oracle is actually one of the developers of MX-16. Now, we also had an opportunity to host Dolphin on our new Destination Linux podcast. When I say our, it's myself and Rocco from the Big Daddy YouTube channel. So it was very interesting to have Dolphin there to kind of go through and give us some background on the development team, which derives from Antics Linux as well. We were also able to discuss kind of some of the features, the MX tools and things, which we'll take a look at in today's review. We were also able to discuss kind of the future of MX-16. So if you get a chance, check out Destination Linux episode 2. It's titled Dolphins Are Cool, and so you'll hope you enjoy that. You'll get a little insight there. I also want to point you over to another channel. Again, Sudo Reboot has an excellent look at MX-16. He calls this the Peppermint 7 Killer, and he goes on to say that he thinks this is perhaps the best distribution of 2016. So definitely check that out, as well as English Bob. He has I think a really good look and a slightly different perspective. He's still extremely happy with MX-16, so check out English Bob as well. This review is going to be a little different in that I wanted to pull up, and let me go ahead and do that. I'll close off a few pages here. I wanted to pull up the system that this is running on. It's important for you to know that I found an old laptop that I forgot that I had, actually. It's the Asus R1F. Now, I want to say this thing came out, gosh, close to 8 or 10 years ago. And we'll kind of get into the specs here for just a minute, but I bring this up because, number one, it's old hardware. We're talking dual-core CPU, and in this particular system, I only have 2 gigs of RAM. But I wanted to point this out for, number one, I mean, it could be that someone's got an R1F system themselves, and I want you to know that everything works out of the box with MX-16. And that's important to mention because this is, and it was kind of ahead of its time, this is a tablet PC. It was, pre-installed with Windows proper, and I believe I upgraded it to, or had a free upgrade to Vista, which was just a nightmare on the system. But in its day, this was a fairly high-end system with the stylus pen and everything. Well, everything works. The touchscreen works. The audio works. Everything. Everything. I say everything. You had some hardware keys here on the screen once you flip it around into tablet mode. I haven't tested all of those, but everything as far as having a system that you can operate works on this R1F with MX-16, which I was truly impressed with. I expected that the touchscreen would not work. I really expected to have more issues, but Wi-Fi out of the box works. Bluetooth out of the box works. So anyway, very happy to report that. Now I want to jump over here and just take a quick look just to show you the specs that this is running on. And I think it's important because if you have older hardware with similar specs, I think MX-16 is certainly something for you to take a look at, because you'll see as we're going through the review process that it runs just fine. In fact, it's something you could use day in, day out. Now, it's not a speed demon. Things do not open instantly, but you can see here, this is an Intel Core 2 with 2 gigs of RAM. Now, this has an Intel 945 graphics card, 14, and I'm running this with an external monitor right now. Then you have Intel audio, and then I've got my mic connected here. But you can see very low system specs. This is an old machine. Again, with a touch screen that worked, just very surprising. So I wanted to make sure I pointed that out. All right, so MX-16, we're going to close out some tabs here. MX-16, I am going to call this the Dremel tool of Linux distributions, and that is a compliment. For those of you not familiar with the Dremel tool, it is an orbital tool that has a multitude of attachments that you can add to it so that you can do sanding and polishing and cutting and just a series of different operations that you can do with this one tool. I own one. I love it. I use it with odd projects from time to time. It's an excellent tool. So when I call MX-16 the Dremel tool of Linux distributions, that is definitely a compliment. So I'll just give you kind of a brief history here about MX-16. It is based off of Debian stable, Xfce to be exact. And this is really derived from the Antics team, so it's kind of Antics core. But they have done some legwork here that you will not find in every distribution, and I'll attribute that to the MX tools. So let's just go ahead and jump in and take a look at that. You'll notice again, this is not a speed demon, so I've clicked. Now we're waiting for MX tools to pop up there. That is not the case. You won't find that it's that slow on everything. I've just noticed that when you launch into MX tools, it's a little bit slower. But again, folks, remember this is 2 gigs of RAM on a dual-core Intel system that's 8 or 10 years old. So, you know, I'm very pleased with what I see here as far as function. Now, the MX Tools is really one of the main features, not the feature, but one of the main features which really sets MX-16 Linux apart. So you've got a live USB maker and a snapshot tool here. The snapshot tool is really cool in that you could set up MX-16, add and remove software programs, change your theming and everything, and then create your own ISO so that you could, you know, share with your friends your own personal version of MX-16. So, you know, just not something that you see in every distribution. Now under maintenance, you're going to see boot repair so that you could go in and if you've got boot issues, maybe you're dual booting or anything like that, you could go in and reinstall the grub bootloader. You could repair the grub configuration file, back up the master boot record, things like that. So very handy to have that in place. User manager, flash manager. Let's jump into that. So from here we could install Flash, remove Pepper Flash, which was pre-installed, or update Pepper Flash. So, and then you have a menu editor. And again, there is so much within MX-16 Linux that I can't take the time to get into everything. And that's why I mentioned sudo reboots video as well as Run with the Dolphin, because there's multiple videos there where you can get into multiple details. There is so much within MX-16. Really, it would take a series of videos, a series of reviews to get into everything. Let's just jump back in and kind of go through some of the other tools. Now this is really something here. So if you are an inexperienced Linux user and you have an AMD/ATI or NVIDIA card, and you've ever tried to go through the process of getting the proper drivers, these two tools here under Setup are immensely useful. As well as with older hardware, if you have a Broadcom wireless card or anything to do with Broadcom wireless can be sometimes a real pain in the wazoo. Here you can go in and search for Linux drivers. It'll show you what is loaded and then blacklisted. You've got through NDIS wrapper, you could go in and use the Windows drivers. Back in the old days with Linux, with Broadcom, typically you were going in and setting up NDIS wrapper and then pulling down the Windows drivers. That was kind of the only option you had. So to have this in place is huge. I mean, it's like they've thought of everything. Codecs Installer. Now, I have not gone through the process of installing Codecs. We'll go ahead and let that process run. This quick and easy, just a few clicks. And these are things really, yes, we have distributions today that handle a lot of this, but it's rare to see a distribution that has all of this in place the way this is in place with the MX tool setup. I can't think of another distribution with the number of tools in place to do everything really from one location like this. So that's really one of the main things that sets MX-16 apart. And believe me, folks, there's been a tremendous amount of legwork behind the scenes to make sure that these various tools work as intended. Now, I'm not going to say it'll be flawless for everyone because there are so many systems out there. And I'm sure that if you go into the MX-16 forums, you're going to see where people have had issues with various drivers, and issues with some of the tools because of their specific hardware, so on and so forth. So don't get me wrong here. This isn't going to be a cure-all for, if you've got a wonky system out there that's, maybe needs one specific driver. I'm not telling you that this is going to cure everything and run flawless on every system. But what I'm saying is this takes it to a whole new level with this tool set in place to really get you up and going, at a level that is really just hard to find today. So select sound, system sounds, and I've got system sounds in place and set up, so I'll just kind of bounce through that. Again, I can't really dig into everything here because there is so much. Now, I love too, once you launch a tool, if you'll notice, when you close that tool, you go right back to the MX Tools main screen. So again, attention to detail. Someone thought it through and said, wait a minute, once you launch a tool, do you really have to go back and click on the application launcher or on your shortcut and relaunch into this system? No, you don't. It'll go right back to that window. Now here you have the Debian Backports installer. That's huge. If you're running Ubuntu systems, you have to go in and set up backports and things like that. And then we have their own package installer. Now, also, I'll go ahead and they call this the simple package installer. I'll also tell you that you have Synaptic Package Manager in place. Believe me, folks, this distribution really has everything. Again, it's the Dremel tool of distributions. Now, you can see CPU usage is up. Memory's not too bad, 33%. All right, so once this launches, you're going to see a series of categories. Now, from here, they've built out their own repositories, and they will, according to Dolphin, if you'll go listen to Destination Linux podcast, we got into their goal here with the MX package installer is to continue to build on this repository. So this is their own repository, and you'll find packages in here, some of the most popular packages, and they actually have on their website or in their forum an area where you can go and request packages. So here under audio, you've got Audacious, Audacity, so on and so forth, on down the line, Spotify. One that I really appreciate, if you come down to, where was it here? Under, well, shoot, I'll tell you what, let's do it the simple, easy way. So under screencast, there we go, it had its own category. You've got simple screen recorder. So let's go ahead and close that out. And not only do you have simple screen recorder, but you also have OBS Studio. You have Record My Desktop, as well as simple screen recorder. So you can tell that they've gone into some of the more popular screen recorders and added that to their repos. And you'll find that throughout. So under Office, for example, Adobe Reader, GNU Cache or GNU Cache. Let's see here. Let's go on up and see what else may be interesting. They've got docs, various docs, Cairo, Docky, and Plank. Browsers, Chromium, Firefox, Google Chrome Stable, the latest Google Chrome stable. And that's the other thing I'll mention here. These aren't old, outdated packages. What you're going to find in their repos are current, up-to-date packages. And just to give you an example of that, and then we'll go ahead, we'll go through the rest of the tools. You've got a Repo Manager, so let's jump into that. I don't want to jump around too much. So here you see by default, you've got the USA Utah repo set up, and then you've got individual sources here. Let's see if we can maximize that. So we have here selected Jesse updates, main, so on and so forth. And again, I can't spend time with everything. There's so much here. You can test the repo installer. You have USB unmounter and find shares. So again, the MX tool set, fantastic job here putting everything all together right here, including graphics drivers, installer tools, just great job. Broadcom tools, great job. Alright, so what I wanted to show you was, for example, Libre Office. We'll slide over to Office here. Now I've launched this once before, so what we'll do, typically the first launch with Libre Office is a little slower. So I've already pre-launched this, so it's not going to be the first launch, and then you'll see how long it takes Rider to open, and maybe you can compare this to your state-of-the-art system. So not terrible, certainly workable. You compare this to, say, if this had Vista loaded on it, it would be forever and a day. I mean, we could knit a sweater before the Office program launched. But you'll notice too the theming here. But the reason I launched this is I wanted to point out what you're going to find within MX-16 is very current, very up-to-date software. Now I clicked on About. That took a minute to launch. But this is version 5.2.2.2, which I didn't know they had that many points. But anyway, so very current version. So again, that's attention to detail. That's thinking in advance, if you will, or maybe thinking outside the box a little bit. It's these little details as you start digging into this where things start to surface, and you say to yourself over a period of usage, and that's one of the reasons that I was delayed in getting this out, is we had the holidays. I really wanted to have this on hardware, because after I heard sudo reboot say that this could possibly be the distribution of 2016, I perked up. I mean, this kind of hit me out of the blue, and you'll hear in the podcast we have some discussion about that. For me, it was like MX-16 just kind of happened out of the blue. And then English Bob, I watched one of his videos on MX-16, and he went on and on about what a phenomenal distribution it is. And so I really wanted to make sure I gave this its due diligence. And then after we had an opportunity to talk with Dolphin Oracle and hear the behind the scenes of what's going on with the development team and things like that through Destination Linux podcast, I'm going to plug that as many times as I can. I really hope you guys like the podcast and start listening to the podcast in your travels and things like that. Anyway, I really wanted to make sure that I was able to dig in and put this on hardware and put it through its paces. And specifically this old hardware, I'm really pleased with the way this runs. So we're going to launch the file manager. So, not instant, but certainly not like Windows Vista would be on this system. Now I want to talk about several things here. So the installer. The installer is I'm 99% sure is their own installer. It's not, it's not an Ubuntu installer. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank on all the various installers. At any rate, it's their own installer. I'm pretty sure of that. It gives you all the options to go in and set up your partitions and everything exactly as you would want for dual boot, so on and so forth. The install process for me was very straightforward in that I wiped the entire drive and went through the install process from there. Now the thing that impressed me was the boot up speed. So from the moment I hit the power button to boot this thing up, I came in just at 24 seconds. Now, with an old system like this, I'm so impressed with that. Again, if we had Windows Vista on here, which used to run on this thing, you could hit start or hit the power button to boot up into Vista, and then you could go make yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and come back, and you'd still be waiting. So, for old hardware like this, again, really impressive. I also want to talk about just kind of the base of this in case we didn't cover that. So this is based off of Debian. And again, it's got antics at its core running the Xfce Desktop. Now, Xfce is a great choice for a distribution like this because it allows this distribution, again, to run on older hardware without feeling too heavy or too slow. Now, you're going to see in some cases things aren't, they're not lightning fast. So if we launch into the browser, for example. And why I wanted to do this one a little different is so that you could tell if you've got older hardware out there and you're looking for a distribution that would be operable and not, painful to use. Now, you can see that took a while. But again, it's not like Windows Vista would be, or in some cases Windows 10 even can wind up being slower than this. So that was kind of my main focus. I wanted to show the power of MX-16 on older hardware. Again, I could get into a lot of other features, and we'll skim through some of these. There's so much here that really one video I don't think could do this distribution justice. So if we go to all, I'm just going to scroll through here. Let me go back to all. We'll start at the top. And anything that kind of stands out. So here you've got part of the MX tools are going to show up in the list. Appearance, you can get in. And one thing that's nice about Xfce, even though it's a light desktop, you've got a ton of options for theming and that kind of thing. The way you set up your application launcher that we see here. You could move the categories to the left as opposed to the right where they are here, so that you could have your actual application list to the right with or without the descriptions. I wanted you to see default. This is one of the built-in wallpapers. The clock widget that you see on the screen here is an MX clock. So we'll go ahead. You've got Application Finder, Archive Manager, Asunder CD Ripper, audio mixer, Bluetooth adapters, bulk rename for Thunar the file manager. Catfish File Search is one of their standout programs. I'm going to kind of scroll through here. Disk Usage Analyzer. Firefox was the default browser. And as you saw from the MX software installer, you have an option with one click to install Chrome or Chromium. GDebi package installer was set up. GIMP. Let's see here. Anything else that's going to HexChat. HTOP was set up. Libre Office, which we talked about. Now, Lucky Backup. This is one of the programs that they kind of tout. I haven't gone through the backup process. The way I'm set up for most of my distro reviews, I don't go through backup, but anyway, that would be something to check out. Midnight Commander, MX App Notifier. Again, all of the MX tools here are going to be in the list. Codecs Installer, so on and so forth. The MX Clocky, which we have running there. Let's see here as we scroll. Again, MX Tools, MX Tools. You've got Java there in place, pre-installed. PDF Shuffler was pre-installed. That's an app that I really, really like and use frequently. Actually have in the Cool Linux Tools segment. PDF Shuffler is featured. Let's see here. Pulse Audio Volume Control was set up. Scan to PDF. Samba, Root Terminal. On and on and on. You've got Shotwell for photos organizing. I installed Simple Screen Recorder. SMTube was pre-installed. Synaptic was pre-installed. Let's see here. UNetbootin for creating live USB drives. Not my favorite app for that. But anyway, it's already set up. Windows buttons. You could go in and set up everything from your window manager to your Windows buttons. You can go in. There's so much you can configure here. Again, Windows wireless drivers, part of the tools, XF burn, and then the Xfce terminal. There's so much in place here that, again, I think to really get a full understanding of this distribution, you would need to watch probably 3 or 4 different reviews, and certainly check out Run with the Dolphin, because he breaks down several of the tool set features and things like that. Now I want to talk a little bit about the UI and the overall theming and look and feel. Really impressed with it. It's kind of a dark theme, but again, it's one of those areas where attention to detail pays off, because it's consistent throughout. There's probably an area or two that I just simply have not found where the UI may be a little inconsistent. You'll also notice that the main panel is on the left by default here. Now, I also have MX-16 installed on my hybrid tablet, and that's where having this panel on the left, similar to Unity, comes in handy, because where you don't have screen real estate top to bottom, you have, with the widescreen of a lot of tablets and hybrids, real estate from left to right in the horizontal plane. So that's where having this panel set up on the left comes in handy as far as screen real estate is concerned. But the other thing, again, attention to detail, the applets here that are in place, they worked on those to maintain a specific size. Now you've got a couple of things that are running here simply because I've launched them. So paying attention to the applet size and things like that's important, because if you get into just base standard Xfce as a desktop and you start adding and removing applets, you'll find out pretty quickly that not everything's consistent. But if we go into the file manager, you'll see a nice theming consistency there. And you've got lots of options within Xfce while remaining, light. This is Thunar version, let's see here, 1.6.10, so very very current. Very capable file manager. Not my number one pick, but again, very capable. It will do everything you need it to do. Right-click menu, things like that. Share a folder on your network. You can now. This isn't. I don't believe this is set up. I think by the MX team. Ownership to root. Open root Thunar here. I believe that's something that is not default. So again, some attention to detail, and again, I'll say it. MX-16 is the Dremel tool of Linux distributions. There's so much here that you can go in and configure and set up with one click, and so many things that you don't have to go in and set up and configure, because they thought about it for you, and they put so many things in place for you that it just removes a lot of obstacles. So from that standpoint alone, I'm just going to give it high marks, because you've opened up the possibility for more people to enjoy a Linux operating system, or a GNU Linux operating system. And really, that's what it's all about. That's my hope for 2017, is that we see a jump in Linux users. And it's really a selfish reason. That reason is simply this: the more Linux users we have, the more attention we get from high quality developers, which means in turn that we hopefully start to see more high quality games coming to Linux, more high quality software coming to Linux. We already have a really excellent share of software and tools, but the more people we have involved and participating, especially from the developer side, it's really just a good thing. So to see a distribution that has the forethought and the really detailed work, attention to detail, and I guess I would say the idea behind a distribution that says, hey, let's not just throw out documentation on, hey, here's how you'll open root within the file manager. Let's just go ahead and put it in place. So it's things like that. And that's the kind of thing that's kind of hard to show. Now, let's just talk a minute. Okay, maybe you don't like the panel here on the left, so maybe you want to change that. So you could go into settings, because I don't know what it's called. It's not alternatives configurator. Within that, you could go in and set up a tremendous amount. Because I don't recall what it's called, I'm going to scroll through here until I find it. Here we go. The MX panel orientation. And then you've got MX default look. So if you don't like the panel on the left, you'll see here it says the current panel settings have been backed up in a hidden folder called .restore in your home folder. Now, again, this is one of those areas you don't really know it till you see it. I can tell you from personal use of going in and configuring Xfce, I've gotten myself into so much of a headache before in trying to get things set up because I wasn't paying attention, because I clicked something or deleted something with, before I really was paying attention to what it was I was doing. And then I'm like, well, I want to go back, and it's become an absolute pain. I've actually had to reinstall the desktop before to go back and really start from scratch because I screwed things up so bad. But here, someone within the development team had the forethought to go in and create a backup of your panel settings. So if you're like me and you're goofy and you go in and you mess things up, you can go into your restore folder or pull in from your restore folder and take it back to default. So that's one of those things you don't see till you see it, and then you go, aha, why doesn't everyone do this? All right, so we're going to say OK. And now we have some options here. So we can display the panel horizontally. We could go back to vertical once we go to horizontal. Here's simple one-click restore default panel or back up the current panel configuration. So let's say we decided we want to do this since I'm now on an external monitor. All right, so that's going to put that at the bottom. And so we're going to go ahead and well, I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to minimize. I'm just going to leave this where it is. I'm not going to minimize. Let's say that I've added a couple of applets here. So if we go into panel, add new items, I'll just show you that. Why don't we? Let's add an action button for log out, lock, and other system actions. So we're going to go ahead and add that. And you'll see that that popped in. Now where did that go? Okay, that popped in right here. And so now we've got options for lock screen, switch user, suspend, shut down, and log out. And let's go ahead and we'll add, let's see, let's add something else just to make the point. We'll add screenshot. Where'd you go? You can see here a little lag in scrolling. And now we've got screenshot added here. We'll hit close. Now let's say this is the panel. This is it. This is the way I want it. So I wanted to do a backup of that. So we could just simply click backup current panel configuration and apply. And now that's been placed in the folder. So it's that quick, that easy. Again, Xfce is, while it's light, it's also very easy to configure. And you could take the panel to the top. You could drag it up to the top manually. All right, so we're going to leave that here. I could go on and on with so many features. If you look at what's pre-installed, and again, for the ISO size, I think it came in at 1.2 gigs, so it's not a gigantic, 2.5 gig ISO or anything like that. But what they have pre-installed really is impressive because it's so useful. And I don't want to be over I guess, how would I describe this? I'm not trying to gush over this. I just want you to know this. I'm not gushing over this because I had a chance to chat with one of the developers, and I'm not gushing over this because everybody else in their reviews have gushed, have just praised MX-16. I'm giving you my honest assessment here as to how impressed I am with the thought that went into this, with the MX tools, with the theming, the overall appearance and UI, everything that's in place. It's just kind of all there, and so many tools in place. Now, am I going to use this as my daily driver? Probably not. Even with all the work that's going into this, with their own repo, with one-click easy access to things, I'm probably not going to use this as my daily driver because I have become such an Arch fan. And right now I'm experimenting with various desktops. I'm kind of going through a GNOME phase or GNOME phase right now. And I bounce back to I bounce back to KDE frequently. I love KDE, and there's so much going on there. I'll keep my fingers crossed that one day they'll have maybe an official release of a KDE desktop version. And so, but this is certainly a distribution I'm going to keep my eyes on. Now that I know about it, it's wild how this kind of came out of the blue. And so I'm just going to say it this way. If you're looking for something different, maybe you're running Ubuntu or something like that, or maybe you've never run a proper Debian based distribution, certainly give this a look. If you're somewhat new to Linux, maybe you've struggled with your graphics cards and things like that, certainly give this a look. I'm not going to say it's perfect. There could be issues depending on your hardware. Or if you're looking for a distribution for older hardware, I would certainly say give this a look. As you can tell here, 2 gigs of RAM on a system that's 8 or 10 years old, and it's certainly operable. It's not blazing fast, it's not a speed demon, but it's certainly usable, and really impressed with what they've done here with MX-16, and look forward to seeing what's coming in the future. All right, that's it. I kind of went on a little long here, but again, lots to see. Hey, I wish everyone out there a very happy and safe new year as we come into 2017. Just be safe out there, have fun, and enjoy bringing in the new year. And we will check you later.